and then you'll die.
Hello everyone, Omen here, back again with another video. Shocking, I know. Today, we are here with Selene. Start game. The sound was driving him crazy. Monotonous muffled thuds were resonating throughout his head with dull pain. The pain wasn't too strong, nothing unbearable. But that sound, more than anything else, he wanted this sound to just stop. Thud. Nevertheless, the knocking sounds didn't end. He knew it well enough, because he himself was their origin. Thud. 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 The nose of his soft home moccasin, that's a word, was hitting the rear of his desk, over and over again, like a huge fluffy moth, frantically ramming against the window glass. Actually, he wanted plenty of things. He wanted to pay for the rent in time this month, not to displease his landlady again. He wanted to finish the script, at least in draft, because the draft is at least something he can work with, and he wanted to sleep. No, not like that. The problem, a serious one, was that he didn't really want to sleep. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his shut eyes, pressing his eyeballs until dancing pale lights appeared. I love that feeling. Of course, he took the sleeping pills. When a healthy 8-hour sleep gives way to a not so healthy 5-hour sleep, then 3-hour one, and then goes away entirely, you stop thinking how this will impact your liver. You just want to sleep. You need to sleep, especially if you've already taken an advance payment for the first part of the gig. It says a gig. And the goddamn text won't just write itself. However, if the text could in fact write itself somehow, he would probably lose his job. He didn't have any illusions in this regard. As soon as neural networks get smart enough, he and dozens of other ghostwriters will vanish into morning mist of a new era in literature. He didn't have much of a name or connections, only some skill and a knack to meeting the deadlines for the most part. The client was content with this, and he was content with the pay. So everything went well, until the pills started failing him. Blam. This time, the tic got too strong. His foot jerked and hit the board with very notable pain. Seemed like he even heard his toes crack. He muttered a short curse and rolled the chair away from the desk. Although he knew, now that his attention was not trained at the blank text file, the tic could go away all by itself. Should go away all by itself. It's funny how the consciousness is detached from the body. He often thought about it, especially while having insomnia. It's like you're working as a team, but your partner starts pulling something. You seem to have common goals, but then all hell breaks loose. You are definitely left alone with it, and your partner is more interested in watching the fire than fighting it. In the end, you have no idea what's on his mind. Well, at least there won't be any more knocking. Good. A small window at the far side of the room flushed white for a moment. A storm? Now that he thought about it, the day was hot. The vicious, stagnant air still filled the room. This, and the barely audible squeak of an overheated network filter. He became sensitive to such things when he could not fall asleep for a long time. Made the entire room seem to vibrate a little, like a cocoon that's about to hatch. Actually, this sounds like a good line. He rolled back to the table and was about to write that thought down, but paused over the keyboard. He remembered the individual words and the general idea, but the sentence had already slipped away. This time, the white light seemed to fill the entire room. Then a thunder followed, resembling a low gut roar of something large and famished. Good Lord. He called to God way too often for someone who never goes to church. Just a habit he inherited from his mother. A furious patter of raindrops pounded on his window. There's no way he could work like this. Not now. But maybe it's for the best. Since he was a little boy, he slept well during the storms. Had to seize the moment. He groped for a jar of sleeping pills. Always good to have your working tools at hand. Popped the pills into his mouth and opened the window to hear the steady patter of the rain. Then he went to the bed and collapsed on top of the bed. Then he went to the bed and collapsed on top of the bed sheets, his clothes still on. He could tell by the sound the water had flooded the windowsill and was trickling down to the floor. He decided that was a small price to pay. He felt a pleasant chill of cloth beneath his cheek. The wavering haze was gradually fading from his room. Yet the sleep did not come. He tried to take off his shoes, change position, take a pillow cover. He tried to take off his shoes, change position, take a pillow, cover himself, throw the pillow away to the other side of the room. Nothing helped. He just laid there with his eyes closed. And though his closed eyelids felt heavy, he knew it was an illusion. All in vain. He's not sleeping. He can't sleep. Thud. At first he thought he was imagining things. Thud. 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 Sometimes the knocking paused, but it never stopped completely. The sound came from below, from the first floor. Someone was banging insistently on the door, and with each thud, he could feel the rage building up, like a tight knot of pain around his stomach. He is trying to sleep. Is it really that hard to just leave a man alone? At least at night, at least in the house that he pays for. Specifically, so that nobody would bother him. He opened his eyes, easy, just as he thought, sprang to his feet and ran down the stairs. Something was boiling inside him. Halfway to the door, he took a turn to the cupboard and pulled out an old baseball bat. He wasn't likely to actually use it. He asked himself if he would, as he reached for the door handle. No, he certainly wouldn't. But he's angry, and he wants the night guest to learn it. What the hell? The rain was still pouring, or rather, it was actually getting stronger. His mother would say, and the floodgates of heaven tore open. His mother used to say a lot of things. That was on the list of reasons. His mother used to say a lot of things. That was on the list of reasons why he had to overpay for a separate house where anyone could start banging the door in the middle of the night. A cat, for example. What the hell? He said it again, this time aloud. A cat was standing on his porch. That's not a cat. That's a human with a collar on. She looked like a purebred British Shorthair in all respects, except for the colour. Aside from the smoky grey head, she looked as if she was dropped into a vat of white paint, and then the lower part was dipped into black one. Black paint? Wet fur clung to her small, rather skinny body, dripping with water. The cat would have probably slipped into the house as soon as the door opened. But instead she froze, as if waiting for the host to say something. What happens if I refuse? What was that? This isn't his house. Maybe he pays for it, but it's not his house. And even if the house was his, would anything have changed? It's easier to put the blame on the landlady. The landlady would have a fit. And he would have to find a new hole to crawl in and forget about the deposit too. But was she the real problem? No. Oh, pardon me. The problem was that he couldn't even take care of himself. Taking care of someone else is a much bigger task, even if it's just for one night. No, I'm sorry. I can't let you in. She must have just shaken her head to dry off. But he thought she nodded. I understand. When the door clicked, he felt a pang of guilt. Did he do the right thing? He had no answer. He should have put some bedding for her on the porch, he thought. But a sudden wave of fatigue swept him off his feet. He somehow made it to the living room and collapsed on the couch. The body, too light and too heavy, fell through the upholstery fabric. He felt layer, the row of compressed spring, the wooden frame. He kept falling into the pitch, blackness, until it closed over him like a smooth dome. He wasn't dreaming. That's an error. Exit. Oh, it's because I chose the wrong answer. Okay, let her in. It was cold outside, much colder than one might think. He didn't feel angry anymore. All right, come in. He stepped aside, freeing the doorway. The cat didn't move. What, you don't want to? He was about to say, fine then, close the door, go back to the second floor, and lie in a suffocating half-sleep until morning. But he finally realized what was wrong. The bat. He threw it on the sofa, but missed. The bat clattered on the floor. The cat followed it into the darkness with her round yellow eyes. The sounds didn't frighten her. He sighed. I won't hurt you. Come in if you want. The cat rose her eyes at him. For the first time he actually saw, and couldn't help admiring, how big and yellow they were. The cat's pupils were also large and incredibly round, like I can't English. Like 2 full moons in an eclipse. Just as he was about to close the door, for the second time, the cat murmured something and fluttered into the house, butting him with her wet head as she passed by. He smiled. Strictly speaking, at this very moment, his line had ended. If the landlady found out, and he was sure she would, he'd have to look for a new place to live. There are too many lonely, bored seniors in the neighbourhood who have only 2 pastimes: observing and reporting, and it doesn't really matter what or to whom. Well, it's fine. Maybe he'd leave the suburbs. Maybe he'd move to an apartment. Since him getting privacy didn't work out anyway. The rain was getting stronger. He closed the door. And I got a drink, because my mouth is dry. The cat explored the house with cautious curiosity, stopping by different objects, as if trying to understand their purpose. Watching it was amusing, so amusing that he even forgot about the stain. Stain? What stain? When he remembered, it had already spread out. A dark spot of water in the place where the cat clung to him. He pulled the wet cloth away from his body and stared at it blankly for a moment, then almost groaned aloud. The cat was soaked, so he probably got a little bit of dirt in the house. A lot of dirt in the house. He decided not to turn on the light. He had enough disappointment for one night. Instead, he went to get a towel. "All right, come here." The cat turned her head to the voice and froze in place. She was examining the TV, the lifeless black mirror of a plasma panel, in a lacquer frame that we haven't even touched since moving in. In the reflection, the cat herself looked back. She gave him a long, appraising look, and then, with a sudden eagerness, trotted towards him, deftly avoiding the obstacles. He was surprised. Maybe the cat decided that he was more interesting than the TV, or maybe she still respected the host well. Anyway, he felt grateful. Finally, someone he can actually negotiate with. Suddenly, he thought how nice it would be to crawl under the blanket with a warm ball of fur. It would surely have helped him to fall asleep. As a child, he had a cat. Grey, huge, brash, immensely huge, and equally beloved. Try that again. As a child, he had a cat. Grey, huge, brash, immensely ugly, and equally beloved. He often fell asleep hugging him. The cat's name was Timo, and he faded into a June night many years ago. The cat bumped her wet head against him once more. He thought the cats usually shake off water themselves. Usually, but perhaps not always. "Hey, easy there, you're all wet." The cat looked up at him with her moon-shaped eyes and murmured something again. "Do something about it then." Got told. He smiled and got to work. He had to squeeze the fur thoroughly, so the towel soon turned into a wet rag. Should he? You bathe the cat. That won't do. I'll give you a bath. He carried her to the bathroom. The cat stayed still in his arms, a warm and incredibly light body pressed against his chest. He was expecting the cat to bring out the claws any moment. Maybe as he opens the door. Now? Or as he turns the light on? Maybe this time? Still nothing? The cat glanced around the new room and looked at him again with her intelligent, almost human-like gaze. Not a single muscle in her small body moved. He was curious, and that's about it. She trusts me. He was about to ask her if she knows where they were and what was going to happen next. But that was just too much. So, it shouldn't be very difficult. The two of us can manage this. What do you think? He read somewhere a cat should get used to the new surroundings before bathing. Fear is born out of the unknown. And in that regard, people haven't gone too far from cats. New scents, unfamiliar objects, and the splashing of water. There are just shadows under the bed that will fall back if you get a better look at them. These are just shadows under the bed that will fall back if you get a better look at them. He carefully put the cat on the floor. She looked around the room again and returned her questioning eyes to him. Seems like she got comfortable enough. He turned on the water in the shower and felt a gentle touch. The cat was already loitering around his feet. She was curious indeed. The shower isn't so bad compared to the rain, is it? The joke came out a little awkward. He felt embarrassed, and he didn't know why. At least I don't have to censor it. It's parallaxed. Parallaxed. Yeah. She's just a cat. Maybe it was because of how the water glistened on her skin, or how she was looking at him from under half-lowered lashes. She was actually watching. He met her eyes, and each time felt shame burn through him, but that shame was thick and sweet. He was a little dizzy. His hand slid over his mouth. His hand slid over her smooth, wet skin, and each time he would ask himself, was it really necessary? Then he would feel her eyes on him, and his thoughts would melt, running down her thighs with the Then he would feel her eyes on him, and his thoughts would melt, running down her thighs with the lather, disappearing between her neat toes. The bathroom shimmered, molten, bright, pulsating with light or darkness. ? He felt himself losing his balance, and pulled his hand away. But she returned and pressed it to the wet, hot skin, covered in a soapy veil. She guided it. Wonder where that was going. He couldn't remember how he had ended up in the living room again. The cat was napping peacefully in his arms. He absently ran his hand down the cat's wet back, tracing the bumps of her spine with his fingers. I should get you some food. Let me see what I have. He got up, not without a little difficulty. The body felt unusually heavy and unwieldy. He had to give the cat something to eat, He will lie down afterwards, and then, hell, maybe he'll even fall asleep. Maybe he should have gotten a cat from much earlier. A ball of fur with a pair of moon eyes and a velvety voice that you can always negotiate with. And that's about it. That's kind of funny. He could have avoided all that suffering if only he had a cat. The kitchen blurred before his eyes. He got to the refrigerator and opened it, squinting from the light and leaning on the door. He got to the refrigerator and opened it, squinting from the light and leaning on the door way harder than he was supposed to. If the landlady was around at this time, she would have told him I got hiccups. If the landlady was around at this time, she would have told him exactly so. Don't lean on the door. After all, this is her house and her refrigerator, and everything should be neat and tidy in case she has to move new tenants in. Perhaps the landlady would have even warned him about the milk. The milk itself is completely harmless, unless, of course, you are allergic to lactose. But there is a special kind of lactose-free milk, right? What matters is the bottle. Bottles, much like cats, can vary greatly, but this particular one was made of glass. If only the landlady was here, she would probably have told him not to touch the bottle, because he's falling on the floor, and the bottle might break, and then the milk will spill, and he will have nothing to feed the nice cat he found. Or rather, it was her who found him. Or rather, it was her who found him, and very timely, because he was laying on the floor. He had been lying there for some time, and would have been lying still if he hadn't felt the light touch of something hot and rough on his neck. It was almost like a dream, although, of course, comparing sleep with fainting is not very correct, no matter how you look at it. The floor beneath him was surprisingly hard, cold, and wet. He felt all of those three qualities clearly and was afraid to imagine what would happen if he tried to move. But he had to move, one way or another, at least to see what's up, because something hot and rough was still sliding up his cheek, gradually creeping to his ear. He felt a warm breath, and then a cautious bite. Ouch! He jumped on the spot. A shadow rushed to the side, and then calmly began to lap milk from a puddle. Another parallax bit. The cat. What are you doing? The cat looked at him briefly and licked her lips. That's in Japanese. No need to be this dramatic. You were lying around idly, and you're not even a cat. See? Besides, you're soaked in milk. Well, you're right. I let you down and had to get my punishment. I let myself down too. Good Lord, now there's cleaning to do until the next Advent, like his mother would have said. I'll go get a rag. Stay here and don't break down the rest of the kitchen while I'm gone. The cat watched him go with a skeptical look. English is hard. Aren't you the one who've been causing all the trouble so far? When he returned with the bucket, the cat was gone. I don't know what that says. In the kitchen, something exciting was happening. He's had a sock puppet. You will need a blade. Did you take the pills? Scratch out the entrails. The Egyptians widely used honey for embalming and preserving food. Later, their recipes were adopted by the Greeks. Very loud. Also, add a teaspoon of apricot jam, a walnut, and a little cinnamon. Before baking, put a teaspoon of butter on top of that. Microwave for 5 to 7 minutes at full power. Don't listen to them scream. Bon appetit. This is the end. Thank you for playing. This is the end of the teaser. And just saying add it to Steam list and share thoughts on Discord. Alright. So that was Selena. Different, not gonna lie. Hope you enjoyed. Until the next video. Okay. Bye now.